Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:07, and it's O'Connor and Company. It's a very exciting Tuesday morning. You know, it's the 9th day of December. You know what that means, Julie?
I do. No, I don't.
What? Go ahead.
No, I don't.
It means there's 16 days till Christmas. Did you used to, like in your brain, you'd have your advent calendar going on? Or it's like it's the countdown. It's like every day gets closer to Christmas. This is an exciting time. All right,
it is.
Never mind. No, I say that, and you're being a mom.
Panicking.
Oh, I got all this
I'm
stuff that I have
panicking.
to do. I have all these things I have to do. No, just be a kid again and be excited about Christmas.
Oh, please. Oh, would you spare me?
6:35, Ron Halber will join us. 7:05, Carrie Severino. And at 7:35, Kurt Schlichter. Let's talk now about what we're going to talk to Carrie Severino about. She, of course, with Judicial Watch. Excuse me, not with Judicial Watch. Where's Carrie with? She is a Judicial Network. That's right. Excuse me. Yesterday, a very important case. Donald Trump, President of the United States, head of the executive branch, which has pretty clearly defined responsibilities and powers laid out there in Article 2 of the Constitution. When he came into office, he said, yeah, the people elected me to make major changes, and so I'm going to make major changes. And he started dismissing political appointees from various agencies. And the Trump administration is now being sued over those dismissals because the claimants, the people who had these positions, I'm talking about like Federal Trade Commission and various other agencies that have been created by Congress, they claim that they are outside the jurisdiction of the executive branch, that they don't serve at the pleasure of the presidents, that they supersede the executive branch's oversight and their determination whether they stay employed or not. But what's interesting about that, though, is that there's no legislative oversight really either that can dismiss them or fire them. In other words, no one can fire them. No one can replace them.
Right.
No one can dictate the work that they're doing completely outside of the confines of the people. This is the party, by the way, who claims that democracy is being threatened every time a Republican is on a ticket. But they are literally saying that the people have no say because there is literally no mechanism to get rid of these people.
This is the administrative class. This is the bureaucratic class, the unelected bureaucracy. Manifest. Yeah. Absolutely. This is
the fourth branch of government.
Exactly. The unelected deep state. This is the deep state, folks. Yes. This is what people are talking about. That no matter what the president wants to... No. And as was demonstrated, they actually use we are the experts.
Yes.
We know better than the president and many other elected officials. Just amazing.
And it's weird because, you go to Article 2, and Article 2 of the Constitution is really long and dense. It really is. But the good news is you don't have to go past the first line. The first line says the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. That's it.
One guy.
There really isn't any guesswork here. Yeah. And yet, you got to be on the left. You got to be confused about what a woman is. You have to be Ketanji Brown Jackson.
You have to say no kings.
Oh, she literally did bring a no kings argument into it. We're going to play quite a bit of it. You're also going to hear from Justice Kavanaugh, who, in a weird way, almost rebutted and debated Judge Jackson right there during arguments, which is not common. But there's something about Ketanji Brown Jackson that brings out some uncommon reactions from her fellow justices. You'll also hear from the attorney for this fired FTC commissioner, whose name is, unfortunately, Rebecca Slaughter. So this case will go down as Slaughter v. Trump. His name is Amit Agarwal, and he has some interesting, fascinating perspectives on how our constitutional republic is supposed to be managed and run. Let's first begin with Kavanaugh and Jackson here, cut 10.
I don't understand why it is that the thought that the president...
Hold on, sorry, pause there. We got to add this to the montage. Remember the montage from last year's arguments? She constantly does this. I don't understand. It's a vocal tick of hers.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look good for her because it makes it sound like she's an idiot.
Well,
So this is how she is always challenging these attorneys. She starts it out with, I don't understand, which, it's sort of a condescending thing. It's like, I'm really smart. I know this. And so the argument you're making, it's nonsense.
That's exactly
because
right.
I don't have any way of understanding.
Right.
And then, of course, when you hear what she doesn't understand, it becomes obvious that she literally doesn't understand. Okay, here we go. Cut 10.
I don't understand why it is that the thought that the president gets to control everything can outweigh Congress's clear authority and duty to protect the people in this way.
But Justice Kavanaugh asked what happens when a president can't effectively carry out his or her agenda because of what a previous administration from an opposing party has done in maybe setting up one of these multi-member agencies or boards, and those members can't be fired by the president.
I want to give you a chance to deal with the hard hypothetical. When both houses of Congress and president are controlled by the same party, them creating a lot of these independent agencies with or extending some of the current independent agencies into these kinds of situations so as to thwart future presidents of the opposite party.
So to rule for the president, they'd have to overturn a 90-year-old precedent, which is basically been on life support, if we're being honest. But the court's going to consider some of these same questions again. Slightly different framework in January when it wades into whether the president can dismiss a Fed governor.
So just Shannon Bream reporting there for Fox News, of course. I just love Kavanaugh. He's like, let's talk about a really hard hypothetical here. Let's say you have an outgoing administration, for the sake of argument, let's call it the Obama administration, hypothetically. And they're trying to make it difficult for the incoming president. Let's call him Flump, okay? So Obama stacks up all these agencies with all these political appointees that can't be fired, and their sole focus is to grind government to a halt and keep President Flump from doing anything that he hopes to do. Hypothetically, of course, but what if that happens?
Yeah.
And, of course, in this case, Flump has come in and said, okay, I learned my lesson in the first term. We're getting rid of all these people. All right, cut 11. Kavanaugh drills down on the whole idea of what an independent – you hear this all the time. We need an independent commission, independent of the president, independent of Congress. Well, that means independent of the Constitution. That means ultimately independent of us, of we the people. Cut 11.
Independent agencies are not accountable to the people. They're not elected. As Congress and the president are, and are exercising massive power over individual liberty and billion-dollar industries, whether it's the FCC or the FTC or whatever.
All right, more arguments here from yesterday's oral arguments and why this is very important, and also why it's revealing on how the left and the right view our government and view the role and view the ability to actually make changes. If you're always wondering, it's a uniparty and change never happens, and this is what's frustrating because everything stays the same. This is why they've set up this system, and it's been going on for 90 years, that keep a president from actually coming in and making major change. You might like that, by the way, because you don't want a crazy left-wing Democrat to do it, but we've had that. This system seems to be only set up to keep a real change agent from doing anything. So we'll get into more of this. And again, I want to remind you, Carrie Severino, an expert on this stuff, will be joining us at 7:05. Right now it's 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
There was one moment there with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who, by the way, spends a lot of time not asking questions, but just making statements. I think she thinks she's on Abby Phillips' panel show.
Yeah,
Someone should probably tell her otherwise. And she said something that I immediately thought, I'm really looking forward to hearing Julie Gunlock respond to this. So, Julie, stand by. Here's Justice Jackson.
Some issues, some matters, some areas should be handled in this way by nonpartisan experts, that Congress is saying that expertise matters with respect to aspects of the economy and transportation and the various independent agencies that we have. So having a president come in and fire all the scientists and the doctors and the economists and the PhDs and replacing them with loyalists and people who don't know anything is actually not in the best interest of the citizens of the United States. These issues should not be in presidential control. So can you speak to me about the danger of allowing, in these various areas, the president to actually control the Transportation Board and potentially the Federal Reserve and all these other independent agencies?
Okay, Julie, it's all about the experts.
Yes, I that's interesting. You know, I wonder, would she like Fauci to be in charge of the next pandemic? Because Fauci was considered, and I have an idea for education. How about Randy Weingarten, right?
They're the
kind
experts.
of considered an expert, right? Or, I don't know, on the border, Mayorkas, you know, someone who clearly has experience in failure on those issues. I mean, there's a lot of experts, but I would also ask her, is there a such thing as a nonpartisan expert these days? Okay. The entire credentialed class in this country has been 100% captured, not just by Democrats, by the hard left. Let's take gender dysphoria. Let's look at the medical community, the experts in the medical community who for years took young women down this road because the contagion was far more sort of involving young girls. And we have an entire population of young girls today who mutilated their bodies, took off their own breasts with the approval of their parents who were pressured into it by the experts. So anyway, you wanted to hear me. That's
exactly what I was hoping for.
Well, here we go.
It's amazing that she actually even made that argument.
I know.
And
have you been paying attention?
It's incredible. And what was really disconcerting about that was that she included the economy. You know, there are economic experts that should be able to stand by. So if a president runs on issues of the economy and wanting to make a change in economic policy, Justice Jackson would have them precluded from firing people and putting in their own people to implement their economic policies that may be different than what her experts have decided is the way to go. On the economy, here's Justice Gorsuch in Cut 13 talking here again about these agencies and where this power is vested. Now, I read to you the first line of Article 2. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States. That's the first line of Article 2. So now listen to this exchange about where the executive power lies.
So even some quintessentially executive functions, in your view, are not vested in the president of the United States?
Yeah, I would not say that. I would not put it in this. I would not say that they're. Yes, I would say they're not.
You have to say yes to that based on what you've just.
They're not constitutionally committed to the person of the president and to his sole and exclusive discretion.
That's, I mean, to agree with the argument of the left here, and it is the left making this argument against Trump, to agree with that argument, you must believe that these executive functions are not vested in the president of the United States, despite the fact that that's literally what Article 2 of the Constitution says.
You know, I don't mean to be dramatic here, but I mean this really is dangerous. The fact that you've got, you know, the leftist judges here kind of suggesting what they're suggesting and not sort of realizing what they're suggesting.
Well, because this is about Trump and not about the Constitution.
That's right. You're right.
Because and if you don't believe me, if you think I'm being hyperbolic, listen to Ketanji Brown Jackson literally make a no kings reference in her arguments.
Some issues, some matters, some areas should be handled in this way by nonpartisan experts. That Congress is saying that expertise matters with respect to aspects of the economy and transportation and the various independent agencies that we have. So having a president come in and fire all the scientists and the doctors and the economists and the PhDs and replacing them with loyalists and people who don't know anything is actually not in the best interest of the citizens of the United States. These issues should not be in presidential control. So can you speak to me about the danger of allowing in these various areas the president to actually control the Transportation Board and potentially the Federal Reserve and all these other independent agencies? In these particular areas, we would like to have independence. We don't want the president controlling. I guess what I don't understand from your overarching argument is why that determination of Congress, which makes perfect sense given its duty to protect the people of the United States, why that is subjugated to a concern about the president not being able to control everything. I mean, I appreciate there's a conflict between the two, but one would think under our constitutional design, given the history of the monarchy and the concerns that the framers had about a president controlling everything, that in the clash between those two, Congress's view that we should be able to have independence with respect to certain issues should take precedence.
There you go. It's all about no kings. It's all about no kings. You know, we had concerns about the monarchy. I do love that when it's convenient for them, they try to take the views of the framers at the time of the Constitution and the drafting of these documents. But, of course, nowhere in these arguments did I hear, and I'll ask Carrie Severino when we have her at 7:05, at no point did the advocates for this policy that suggests there really should be a fourth branch of government in these so-called independent agencies, at no point did they explain that if not the president, then who are these independent agencies accountable to? They said Congress, but there's no mechanism in our Constitution for Congress to hold them accountable. So exactly who are they accountable to? And the answer is, well, they're accountable to Neera Tanden and Bill Kristol. It's 6:24. Coming up, a conversation with Ron Halber from the Jewish Community Relations Council. Keep it here.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:37 now. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company on our busy Tuesday morning here in the nation's capital. We're going to follow up on that conversation we just had about the arguments before the Supreme Court yesterday with Carrie Severino at 7:05 with Judicial Network. Also at 7:35, our friend Kurt Schlichter, political analyst, columnist, author, bon vivant. He has a brand new book out. We'll talk about the book, but we'll also talk about other stuff going on in the news. That's all coming up. Larry O'Connor here with Julie Gunlock, and joining us now is the Chief Executive Officer, the CEO, the kids like to call him, of the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Washington, Ron Halber. Ron, thanks for joining us, and a premature Happy Hanukkah to you and your organization.
Oh, thank you, and a Merry Christmas to you and Julie.
Thank you. I see that you've, you're starting to get into a little bit of a public spat with a politician, which you don't like doing, by the way. You try to stay above the partisan fray. But my senator, Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, has sort of pushed your buttons here, Ron.
Yeah. Well, it didn't really start that he pushed my buttons. Well, let me put it this way. We had a legislative breakfast, which was very well attended by members of Congress and state, local, and federal officials. And at the end, we did a press gaggle, talked about many topics. The senator's name came out, and I just kind of laid it out where I think he's been, where he's been in terms of his public actions, both from what he has said, what he has outspokenness about Israel, and how he's been acting legislatively on the topic.
Well, all right. Let me frame it in my language. He seems to be leaning really pro-Hamas lately, and as a Maryland voter, this is not how he ran. He ran as a Democrat who is, he would brag about his great relationship with the state of Israel and Israel's right to exist, and he was very robust in criticizing anybody who would say. And now, because again, this is this bizarre, terrifying post-October 7th development, where he seems to be siding with the people who perpetrated that terrorist act.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say that the senator is pro-Hamas. I will say that, and I will say that he was once reliably pro-Israel, and now he's become an unreliable legislator on the U.S.-Israel relationship. But what really set me off, and during the conversation, when I was asked about Senator Van Hollen, I basically made 3 points. I basically said that since the conflict had erupted, he has been using his perch as a U.S. Senator to constantly go after Israel in public, whether it be floor speeches or public comments or op-eds, that he hasn't shown enough empathy for the people of Israel, that is their suffering and their strategic situation. Everybody forgets this was a war on 7 fronts, and it was a war of existential survival. It wasn't just Gaza, it was on 7 fronts, and that he has become the leading advocate to undermine the U.S.-Israel relationship in the Senate. And when those are the points I made, and that resulted in him issuing that what many people thought was a personal attack beneath his dignity and that of his office.
What do you make of the fact, and Van Hollen has sort of engaged with you on this, and so it appears to me, Ron, that the fact that he's willing to sort of publicly have a spat with you and your organization, it suggests that the greater support from the Democrat Party for the concerns of the state of Israel and those constituents here in America who care deeply about the subject, they appear to be sort of drifting a bit. Is that fair to say?
I think there's a significant amount of polling data to show that that support for Israel in the Democratic Party has weakened. But I don't put that at the hands necessarily just of the Democratic Party. I mean, the Prime Minister of Israel has conducted himself in a way where he has not shown gratitude. He did not show gratitude to President Biden. He did not show gratitude to a lot of leading Democrats, and also has aligned himself publicly more with the Republican Party and got involved in domestic U.S. politics, and has probably done more than any single individual to undermine the bipartisan relationship between the United States and Israel. So, I thought Biden was very strongly pro-Israel, and it always upset me that the Israeli government, I did not show the proper appreciation for the endless support that they received from the president.
There seems to be, though, in the Democrat, just to add on to what Larry is saying, it seems to be this idea in the Democrat Party that there has to be a diversity of views. They need to hear a diversity of views. Talk to me about that, because, is it fine? Because I feel like the diversity of views seems to be, and I know you sort of pushed back on this pro-Hamas, but is there... I mean, when I hear the criticism of Israel, it's usually lies, historically misinformed people, and then they sort of give, and they, yes, I understand that, but then they give the lines that I hear from sort of pro-Hamas mouthpieces. So I don't I'm a little bit confused why we have to have this sort of diversity of views, which always results in misinformation and Hamas talking points.
Well, when I say a diversity of views, I mean a diversity of views on how pro-Israel we want to be.
Yes.
I mean, for me, I accept it as a fundamental tenet of that normal thinking people would not go ahead and be on the side of a terrorist group that gang rapes women, kills men, and kills babies. Yeah, you would think, but I don't think. But I think the reaction that you're seeing mostly among young people in the Democratic Party is a opposition to what they see as a disproportionate response by Israel to the conflict after they were attacked. And unfortunately, what they're doing is they're getting two things. One, they're misguided. They just don't understand the history of the Arab-Israeli conflict. They don't understand that Israel has fought numerous wars for survival. They don't understand the hostility, the terrorism that Israel's been subjected to since its existence. They're looking at a moment in time, and they're seeing all the media attention. Now, look, if you just take out the history and just look at this one moment in time and look at the cameras going through Gaza, you see lots of destruction, right? So that's going to inform your opinion. You're going to say, "Oh my God, what horrible!" What they don't understand, and I'm not saying, and I'll leave it to military historians to decide whether the level of Israel's response was. It was certainly an overwhelming response was necessary. How overwhelming? I'll leave it to military historians. But I can understand how these young people look at that. But what they don't understand is that in the Middle East, being strong is how you survive, and that same strength that Israel displayed during the war, which by the way is respected by the Arab regions, their adversary, and is bringing them closer to peace treaties with Syria and possibly Lebanon by the extreme progressive radical left in America is looked upon as something that is horrific, and it's very interesting. The people of the region who are most effective respect the use of strength, at least the nation states around them, and say that's a strong country, we want to align with them, and it could lead to peace. But it's morally repulsive to many people, and I think that's and understandingly when they look at it, but that's what's undermining their support for Israel, which I hope, as they come to learn more about the conflict, the prime minister, there's a new leadership in Israel, that we can move beyond this and regain support for Israel and the Democratic Party. I don't think calling them pro-Hamas is right, but is there a tremendous lack of understanding among America's youth about the conflict, which is contributing to this lack of being supportive of Israel? Absolutely, not even a question.
Ron, thank you for that, and I'm sorry for the chimes in your ear there. I had a computer on the line there. I appreciate you joining us and for clarifying this fully. And listen, we would love to hear from Chris Van Hollen, the senator of Maryland, about this issue too. It does seem like a strange change of tone and focus for him. And I think, sadly, because like so many other Democrats and some Republicans as well, I think he has seen some shifting public support for various reasons, and rather than use his stature and his position to actually enlighten and educate and put in perspective where we stand right now with the state of Israel, I think he's just sort of following the herd. Sadly, that's my opinion.
I wish the senator would talk about the possibilities of peace in the region between Lebanon and Syria. I wish the senator would talk about how Israel's seven-front war has diminished all these strategic threats to the United States and how much better we're standing, and how we would talk about how it has removed Iran as a nuclear threat to Israel, our allies in Europe and the United States. I mean, this war produced has produced a tremendous strategic advantage for the United States in terms of where we sit globally. And it is time that message got out. And it's also time, I think what the situation, things that was most surprising was the personal nature of the attack. I think I wasn't asking for this public spat. I was commenting on the senator's policy decisions, and he responded with something that many people consider very personal. Yeah. And I think that's why you've seen so many national Jewish organizations, local, national, even Ted Cruz and others who have gone ahead and put out statements of support. And he finds himself, in support, and he finds himself a minority, mostly on the way he attacked me as an apologist and as non-representative, which is just language that a 30-year public servant, whom I've worked, by the way, very closely with over the years, should not be engaging in. Again, it's beneath him and beneath the dignity of his office.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. We got to leave it there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Take care. Bye-bye.
Making sense of your world.
I agree with everything you're saying.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
My heart just breaks for what's going on.
Making sense of the news. WMAL's Vince Colonnese. Weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL. Making sense of the news.
I don't know if you know the history here, Julie. It's the Army-Navy football game coming up this Saturday, and there's a long history of the two rival schools playing pranks on each other, and one of the pranks had been to acquire the other team's mascot, Bill the Goat for Navy, and I guess Army has a donkey of sorts that gets heisted. Anyway, there were reports that Bill the Goat was kidnapped by Army cadets, which would, by the way, be a violation of a treaty that the two schools signed back in 92. I just want to let everybody know it is a false. There is a goat involved, but it is not Bill the Goat. I don't know where
you involved?
No, not in any way whatsoever. The West Point cadets presented a goat of sorts. I don't know where they got the goat. I don't know whose goat it is, but it's not from Annapolis. We're going to get into more details on this and a little bit of history of the various pranks, because one prank, the greatest prank I think ever executed between Army and Navy happened. Navy did it, and they did it my kid's plebe year back in 2019. I want to tell you that story and a little bit more about how Bill the Goat is safe and sound for this Saturday's game. I was no comment. It's 6:53.